welcome to Imagine This Stories. We're getting ready to try something new. For the next couple of weeks, you are going to hear the story of Nefera. She's an 11-year-old girl who lives in Pi-Ramesses, the heart of Egypt. Her father works in Pharaoh's palace, and her world has always been full of sunshine and scribes and stories of powerful gods. But then, everything she thought she knew began to change. This is the story of how Egypt trembled and what this girl saw through her own eyes. For the next few weeks, we're going to pretend that we're hearing this story through her eyes. So sit back, relax, kick off your shoes. Imagine this. Hi, my name's Nefera, and this is my story. It all started with the river, the Nile. We called it the lifeblood of Egypt. Every morning, I'd watch its waters shimmer in the sun, carrying boats and fish and good fortune. But one morning, it wasn't blue or green. It was red. Oh, and you wouldn't believe how awful it smelled. Everything swimming in it was dead. We couldn't drink from the river. We couldn't wash our clothes in the river. It was terrible. Our priest said it was a curse, but no one knew what to do. My father said that a Hebrew man named Moses had talked to our leader, Pharaoh. He was in the palace. He told Pharaoh that God wanted him to release the Hebrew slaves, to let them go. Obviously, Pharaoh did not want to do this. Moses warned him that some bad things would happen if he didn't listen to God. But Pharaoh didn't listen. He never listens. So evidently, the next day, Moses and his brother Aaron walked down to the Nile River. Aaron took a long wooden staff and held it over the water. Suddenly, everything went from blue to red. The Nile went from water to blood. This was not good. Everything in the river died. But then the Egyptian magicians were able to do the same things by using their secret arts. And Pharaoh said, "See, it's just a trick." And he wouldn't listen to Moses and Aaron. Instead, he turned around and walked back to his palace. But all of us were stuck living with a river full of blood for a whole week. We had to dig wells alongside the Nile in order to get water that we could drink. 7 days later, just as the Nile turned back into good water, frogs came. It was kind of funny at first. Tiny green ones hopping onto things, and in our kitchen, Toya, my cat, chased some of them under the table. But then, there weren't just one or two frogs. There weren't just hundreds of frogs. There were thousands of frogs. They hopped in through the windows, up the stairs, and into our beds. We couldn't sleep. We couldn't eat. Even the palace was crawling with them. Mother tried to sweep them out with a broom. I tried to scoop them into a basket. It didn't matter. They just kept coming. And still, Pharaoh told Moses no, he would not let the Hebrew slaves leave. Eventually, Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron, and when they arrived at the palace, he told them, "Pray to your God to take the frogs away from me and my people, and then I'll let them go." Moses said, "Okay. When would you like the frogs to leave?" Pharaoh said, "Tomorrow." "Really? Tomorrow? Seriously? Why couldn't if he had said, right now, right this very second?" But then the next day when we got up, well, good news, all the frogs were dead. Bad news, there were dead frogs everywhere. In our houses, in our beds, along the streets. Ugh! They were piled into heaps and the land stunk. But when Pharaoh saw that there were no more frogs hopping around, he hardened his heart and he wouldn't listen to Moses and Aaron and did not let the Hebrew slaves go. Seriously? This proved to be extremely unfortunate. God told Aaron to stretch out his staff again and hit the dust of the ground. All the dust particles that were on the ground turned into gnats. You know, those teeny tiny little biting bugs that fly around and get in your hair and your food and in your mouth. Ugh! The gnats were on the people and the animals. They were everywhere. I couldn't stop itching. My dad said that Pharaoh's magicians told Pharaoh that the God of the Hebrews is doing this. But Pharaoh wouldn't listen. I looked at my father one night and whispered, "What if the Hebrews' God is real? And what if he is doing this?" He didn't answer. The plagues didn't stop. After the gnats, something else came along. Any guess what it was? Flies. Flies came next. Not a few buzzing around and landing on our figs or on our windowsills. No, I mean swarms of flies, pouring like smoke. They covered our faces, landed in our food, got in our eyes and our ears. Toya, my cat, hid under the couch and wouldn't come out. I heard Father say that Moses warned Pharaoh again, "Let the Hebrews go." But Pharaoh's heart stayed hard. But then my dad said something really strange. He said none of the flies were affecting any of the Hebrew people. The land of Goshen, that's the place where the Hebrews live, was fine. He said it was like someone drew a line and the flies knew not to cross over there. That's just crazy. Again, Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and asked them to pray to God and remove all the flies. He said if they'll do this, he'd let the Hebrew people go. We were all really hopeful. The next day, all the flies were gone. And the next day, Pharaoh changed his mind again. I really don't know how much more of this I can take. Wow, what did you think of today's story? What did you think of the life of Nefera? I think it would have been really hard to have been her, don't you? You want to hear something cool? We're not even halfway through the plagues yet. You may be thinking, yeah, that's not very cool at all. And in a way, you're correct. The plagues were terrible. But by the end, you're going to learn a lot about God and how much he loves his people. I hope you'll come back next week and hear what happens to Nefera and her family as we imagine this. Thank you so much for listening today, and please share this podcast with other people. It takes a lot of time and energy to make these, and I really would like to make them available to a lot of people. Thank you so much for your help and support. Have a great week. Bye.